Welcome. I'm Sue Landay. This
Thank
is
you.
Show and Share, and I am so happy to invite with us today Linda Callecod from Seraphim Consulting, who is going to share a tool that she developed and which Trainers Warehouse sold, oh my gosh, maybe like for 10 years or something, called The Road to There. And as Linda and I were kind of prepping for today, she also shared with me that beyond being a trainer extraordinaire and leadership development guru, she is also a musician, an opera singer, a songwriter, and a minister. So, Linda, we welcome you today and are so happy that you'll be able to share with us how you use this tool and how we can use it.
You. Thank you. Hi, everybody. This is very exciting for me. And I developed this tool because when I worked in corporate, people hated strategic planning. They hated it because it's, I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm just muting a few people.
Oh,
Sorry
okay.
about that. Go ahead.
They hated it because it was a long process. People argued over it, couldn't get to a end result that everybody was pleased with, and it wound up being a huge document put in a drawer that nobody saw again. And so all that effort and all that time and money wasted. And yet without a plan, uh, there could be chaos. So I've used this actually in my coaching sessions for life coaching. I've used it for career development to help people focus on what they need to do to reach their career goals. I've used it for organizational development in corporate and nonprofits and a lot in universities. I've used it for strategic planning in several museums. And I've also used it for leadership development and helping. So the tool is meant for creating a vision statement, helping to create a strategic plan, but the process will get you all the above. I've used it with kids, one-to-one on coaching, and I actually did with a medical school with 75 doctors and pharmacists. Uh, that wasn't my most fun, but we did it.
All right. Well, let's see it. Let's see it.
So
So excited. I'm so
let's
excited
take
for
a look
people to
at
see
it.
this. Yeah.
Let's take a look at it. It is, I'm going to put it on. Here we go.
Okay, we got it. We're seeing your
All right.
screen.
All right. Welcome. Here's the road to there. And strategic thinking, visioning, planning process for individual and teams. This is what it is: a simple, engaging, intuitive process tool for strategic planning, brainstorming, and collaborative team vision, providing a mechanism. It's just a tool for creating an action plan for clarity, accountability, and focused attention. Again, you can use it for one person or you can use it for 75 people in a group.
And I'm going to jump in while you cough to say that when you first used this tool, you told me that you would just draw it on a whiteboard or put it on posters throughout the room. And it
Exactly.
wasn't until somebody wanted to kind of take the idea from you, I'm not even going to say the company, that
Yeah.
you thought, oh, let me start kind of
Yes.
making this an official tool.
I was warned, do not show up because it was for their executive team. They said, if you show up and you're drawing this out on flip chart papers, I would have like 6 papers just lined up with everything you're going to see here. They will take it, rename it, and copyright it, and it won't be yours. So I had it copyrighted, and I did all of that in order to save my tool. Thank you, Sue. I forgot
Perfect.
about that.
So,
So there's 5 steps, 5 simple steps. The first thing that you do is you define where you want to go. What is there? What does that ultimate goal look like? A lot of times in strategic planning, people say, we need to do this, we need to do this. Well, you don't know you need to do that until you decide what does it look like when you're successful. Then you describe where you are now. And then third step, what is the gap between where you want to go and where you are now? Then from there, you identify the possible hindrances or obstacles, and only then do you brainstorm how you're going to close the gap. It seems really simple, 5 steps.
That's what we love about it.
And it works every single time. And so we're going to identify there, and in the tool, you see I've actually defined there. And I call it there, but I don't just make it general because it means a lot to a lot of people. So I've identified the areas that we're going to describe: performance and productivity, cultural environment, partnerships, relationships, profitability, or sustainability. This usually works with all organizations. On an individual basis, you can rename these. So, what does it look like when I'm successful financially? What does it look like when I'm successful in my career? What does it look like, et cetera, et cetera? These are just some general categories that work for the environments that I've worked with primarily. So we do a brainstorming, and also please let me know if I'm talking too fast or going too fast, okay? So the first activity is deciding and defining there as it relates to performance and productivity. So I'm going to ask you, we're going to actually try this live, to provide your ideas, and it doesn't really matter what it is because you're in all different organizations. 3 to 5 words on what it would be different, what does it look like when you are at your ultimate level of performing and productivity. Now, with this, I'm using a tool called Slido because online, I want people to be able to easily give feedback. And so this is Slido. If you have your phone or your tablet, go to slido.com, and you can do that right now, slido.com, or you can scan the QR code and then put in the number 9188806, and then answer this question. Describe what would be different when you are where you want to be at your highest level of performance and productivity. So just as a sample, just put some ideas in there. Use your phone or tablet and type it in. It will show up on your phone, but it will also show up on this screen if you'll just do that. When you have reached your highest level of where you really want to be, less anxiety. When you're performing at your highest and productivity, what does that look like? You'll be confident. Wonderful. Less less grumbly. You'll be hands off. There'll be clarity. Okay. Happy. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'll give you like 15 more seconds. Throw some things in there. Okay. Good, 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 good. So in Slido, it will also organize this information for you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move to the next one. This is great. 3 to 4 clients with money retainers. So that is one way where you can just put data in, and then we can analyze that data in terms of what's more important. But here's another way of using this tool. So with Slido, I can do this in a word cloud. So in a word cloud, do the same thing. Put your information in. And if you agree with someone, I saw several happies, then don't say, well, somebody's already done it. Just repeat it. And the ones that are the most popular will populate if you're familiar with word cloud. So kind of put the same things in. And if you agree, use the same word. Confident, happy. So we see happy is big. Oh, rich. I like that. Less fear. Inspired. What else? Confident. That's a big one. All right. Even more than happy. You sleep better. Satisfied. Excellent. Couple of more minutes. All right.
And as people are typing in, I wanted to just reiterate, we're kind of diving into how some of this stuff works for the first step of the process. We're not going to do the same thing for all of the steps, but you'll get a sense of what's included in this whole, not just the model, but in Linda's set of facilitation notes about how you would actually run this activity, either online or in person.
Exactly. Because it comes with a facilitator guide that walks you, it tells you what to say and tells you what to do. And so this information is stored. And we can see right now that confident is a big one, satisfied is a big one, happy, inspired are all big ones. And I'll show you what we're going to do with that in a moment. The other thing that I do, and I want to mention, is that when I'm doing this live with people, I'm using sticky notes, because what usually happens with strategic planning, people do their brainstorming verbally, which then gives somebody else a chance to say, that's not going to work. That's not what I want to do. And that's where all of the discord happens. So it is an individual exercise where people give their true ideas with no judgment. And then later we prioritize. So after the votes, in one session, you will do thumbs up for the ones you like, thumbs downs for the ideas you least agree. But if you do a word cloud, it automatically shows you what's more important. We're going to hold that for a moment. And then we do the same thing with partnerships in business. Then we do the same thing with culture and working environment. And we do the same thing with operations and sustainable efficiency. Because there were 4 areas, we're going to brainstorm what there looks like in all 4 categories. Then I've got breaks already built in, and I also have instructions for the small groups. So we have 4 areas, so we're going to break into 4 small groups. If you're doing this individually, then you will obviously do it all yourself. And in the groups, you will take the information that was brainstormed, prioritized, and here's an imaginary. This is just a sample. So let's say from the performance, these are the outcomes: 100% quality, less than 7% of errors, we're proficient, etc., etc. Then that small group will take that information and put it in a paragraph. This is what it would look like. The ABC Widget Company is the preferred supplier of widgets at a 100% quality index, less than 7% error rate. Everybody is proficient in their jobs, has been cross-trained, accomplished other tasks. So you take the ideas and put it into a sentence or into a paragraph. So you're going to have 4 paragraphs or 4 statements of what there looks like. And then in your facilitator guides, it tells you how to prioritize that into a single statement. So now we've identified what there looks like.
And we're not even getting into the roadblocks or the hurdles or any of the issues. It's just kind of identifying what the goal is, what the hope is. And correct me if I'm wrong, but everybody is doing all 4 steps. You're not breaking into 4 groups to do each of those separate questions. You want everybody to participate in the whole activity. So what we're boiling down to a half an hour probably takes 2 days.
Well, with a really good group, I did this with a business school at University of Washington, and they ran through this in a day and a half because they were really strategic minded.
Okay.
And what it does, it gets buy-in from every person. So there is no, everybody does what the boss says, because the boss is just one of the whole group. And you're right, Sue, everybody's information goes into all the steps. But the small groups just takes the information and puts it into a paragraph. That's all.
Gotcha. Okay. That too. And Linda, I'm sorry you're getting over a cold there. Thank you for hanging with us.
Yeah, thank you. I've actually been coughing for 4 years, and the doctors can't figure out why. But I keep pressing on. So then we do the same process for here, because we want to identify where we are and compare it to where we want to be. So that's the gap. We do a brainstorming activity to identify what's the gap. Then we do a sometimes verbal activity to identify if we're going to close the gap, what could stand in our way? I use this to get the nasties out because people say, well, we can't, well, we can't, well, we can't. Well, I give them a place to put it. So this is where you put the
The
cannot
nasties.
do,
I love
the
that.
nasties. Now we're finally going to get to how. Instead of starting with how is last. We know where we want to go. We've compared it to where we are. We've identified the gaps. Now let's look at the mechanisms of how we're going to close the gap and what we need to do. And then after that brainstorming, we use the same process of prioritizing. And then I've got tools to help you organize this information. Worksheets come with the kit, and all the instructions are for the facilitator. You're going to
I want to just
identify.
let's take a beat for a second because I know the next piece of this isn't just coming up with what the vision looks like, but it's making sure that people follow through. Before we jump into that, let's just take a beat. And is now a good time to just say,
Yes,
are there any
absolutely.
questions on part one?
Absolutely.
Okay, either in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. But just let's take a beat because I know I was asking a bunch of questions, and there will also be time afterwards.
All right, I'm just curious. I have a question.
Okay.
How have you conquered in the past, because you've done this with so many groups, how have you gone about in the past the people that don't want to participate necessarily or might not be as engaged? Is there any strategy or different ways you found that works better with those type of people in the room?
When I'm doing it live, I rarely have that problem. Is going because there's not a lot of time to sit and fold your arms and do nothing. I give them a stack of sticky notes, and I say, "Let me hear what you're thinking. Your participation is so important, so I need to have your voice included." And I'm walking around, and I'm helping them, and I'm taking this, and people get caught in the momentum. Then, when I break them into small groups, we have a scribe who's writing, and everybody has a role. If I see someone sitting back with their arms folded, I give them a job. I need you to help me, blah, 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 blah. I've never had them tell me no.
Thank you, Linda.
Online, I have less control because they can just mute and they can turn their face off and so forth. But usually people who come to the table want to participate. Good question, though. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, well, we'll come back to it, but let's keep us moving forward, Linda.
Okay. So the tools, this is where the rubber meets the road. And you've got all these ideas. You've already prioritized them in small groups. Now we need to determine what are we going to do with them. So the worksheets help you to organize, helps you to prioritize, helps you to determine the tactics that are appropriate for the outcomes. Then there's a schedule, and here's what I've got, and this is a tool too, where if it's a 5-year schedule, I've broken it down by months, by years. What in those hows are you going to accomplish in what month, in what year? Then I've got a tool, and I created this after a number of years because I found out that they have the tools. They say, I'm going to finish this by this component is going to be finished by the end of March, blah, blah, blah. And then nobody does it. So now I created what's called a accountability matrix.
Love that.
Here's an example. Here's all the things you said you're going to do. Here's the dates you said you're going to complete them. And here's all the people who are in the room who are participating. So I'm asking each person to be a champion over one of these. So they put their X or their mark over where they are going to take responsibility. So now the facilitator or the leader of that team or organization can go to Daryl and say, here it is on June the 1st. Let's talk about what you've accomplished. Have you done it? And we've got the milestones. So it builds in accountability. And I have found that this is the key to making the strategic plan or the vision actionable and fulfilling, because now it's not just up in the sky. You've got a name and a person or a group that's taking responsibility for that individual piece. And then, of course, you set milestones along the way for celebration. And because you're constantly coming together to say, I've done it, this is what it looks like, but it also is fluid. So if things happen like COVID and things need to change, you can go back to the tool, do some rearranging, change the dates, or modify your mechanisms to get to where you're going. But it's pretty simple, very straightforward. And again, in the facilitator's guide, I give you all the tools to know what to say, when to say, what questions to ask, and how to use the steps along the way. So that's the tool in a Reader's Digest version. So
Thank
what
you.
questions do you have?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So it looks like one of the questions is if you can share the PowerPoint. That's a little tricky, Mary, only because the tool that Linda sells that we're talking about, everything included in there, is a product that she makes available for sale. I'm going to just put in the in the chat our link to it so you can see it. And again, it used to be a whole physical product, and we've Linda kind of retooled the whole thing as an online virtual that you can either use in person or not. And it's about $60, 59 something. Yeah, 59.95. So there's just so much in that that you can then use. I will be posting this, but you won't be able to use the PowerPoint on your own without purchasing it. Yeah, Gordon, you have a question?
Yeah, I was just wondering about the reasoning behind you starting with there rather than here, and is that interchangeable, or is it like is the risk a bit more?
Yeah,
no.
Really good, Gordon, really good question. So and I used to start with here. This is before I created the tool. I started with here, and this is what I got. This is terrible. They don't blah, 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 blah. And they ought to, and blah, blah, blah. And this is terrible, and we don't ever, and I went, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. And I got all of the garbage of what makes people unhappy. And it was like, oh, no, stop. I'm not your therapist. Can't help you there. So in focusing, see, if you focus on the future, then you're focusing on possibilities. If you look at where you are, you focus on blame. And so I take that completely off the table. Or when we say here, even though I say describe where we are, it will say, well, they need to. I did this and I'm not going to name the company. When we talked about mechanism, people said they, and I said, excuse me, and this was the executive team. I said, who do you think they are? You are they. Oh, yeah. So I take the somebody else's responsibility, somebody else's problem, somebody else to blame, completely off the table. And I found that it has worked very successfully from that point on. I get the obstacles. That's where I throw the garbage. Otherwise, it could take you 6 months to get this thing done through weeding through the garbage.
Great.
That makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Other questions?
And by the way, you can use the PowerPoint slides for a live session. It doesn't have to be online. It will walk you through the steps, and you can use flip charts to write the statements. You can use sticky notes to do the brainstorming. I'm using Slido because online we need to have a means of capturing all of the information. And by the way, this version that I used today was free. So I wanted you to see the free Slido that will capture, the input and the word cloud, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Any other
As
questions?
you say, it's a really straightforward tool, but giving structure. And I love just kind of having the metaphor of the road and thinking about it that way. Um, it's beautiful.
I helped my grandson determine his his college plans. What After he graduated from high school, he didn't know what he wanted to do, and this helped him to think about his future and think about what he needed to do now to help him to get to his desired state, to get to his there. And so I use it
Mm,
in my coaching a lot.
yeah, coaching
Yeah,
applications. And
right.
Jason, thank you for your comment and kind of an underscore to what you said, Linda, about avoiding the blame game. So
Yeah.
do you also, at the beginning, do you let people know the structure of the 5 steps? Like, here's how it's going to work?
Yes,
Or do
absolutely.
you, yeah, set
I
that up
let them know
first?
that every voice is going to be counted. I let them know that together they will prioritize, that we're going to look at, I go through the 5 steps because a lot of analyzers want to know how's this going to work, what we're going to
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah,
So,
for sure.
so I identify the 5 steps. And I also let them know that I'm facilitating the process. So all they have to do is follow the bouncing ball, and I will help them pull it together. They don't have to figure it out. I will help them take that information. And it calms down. And then I give them sugar and coffee. So it comes.
Yeah, I do like how you build in breaks and we've talked before about like physical breaks as well as coffee and food breaks and yeah, that's part of the set so that you kind of you know the cadence and the tool the
Here's,
toolkit and all the slides build that in.
here's another thing that's really important about engagement is don't go too slow.
Hmm.
If it goes too slow and there's gaps of emptiness between the steps, people disengage. It's gotta feel like we need to know what you're thinking. Tell us what you're thinking. There's no right and wrong because nobody is commenting on your input, and it's anonymous. So you can say what you really want to say, and nobody is going to fight you on it or embarrass you. And I also let people know that as a facilitator, I keep everybody safe in the process.
And so while I get that there's an interest to keep things moving forward, and maybe that's just the facilitator kind of having a sense of when you need to give people
Yes,
enough time, like slow
yes.
down enough to give people time to think, make sure you've got those last answers, but without belaboring it with too much time. It's like it's a fine line, I guess, right?
Well, here's a way of thinking, and this is how I train my facilitators. Think about putting popcorn in the microwave.
I love
When the
that.
popcorn is popping, let it continue to pop. When all of a sudden you're just getting one or two pops, stop. And then you move on.
Perfect. And I suppose if someone else wants to add something later, who's stopping them from doing
Always,
that, right?
always.
Yeah,
Yes.
awesome. Well, Linda, we're at the end of our 30 minutes, and I just want to take a moment to say a huge, huge, huge thank you. It's been wonderful having you here. Love the tool. Thank you
Love
all
you.
for your participation. We will stay on for a while for any additional questions. But again, thank you.
Welcome. You're welcome.